There are some voices that feel like they belong to the land itself, steady, unshaken, and timeless. Sam Elliott's voice is one of those rare things that seems carved out of experience rather than performance. It rolls slowly, with a calm authority that draws people in without effort. For decades, audiences have associated that voice with strength, reliability, and a kind of quiet masculinity that never needs to shout. But what makes it so compelling is not just how it sounds, it is what it carries. Beneath that steady tone is a lifetime of persistence, doubt, and deeply personal reflection. The voice people admire is not just an instrument of acting. It is a reflection of everything he has endured and learned along the way, shaped by time, disappointment, and an unshakable commitment to keep moving forward. A childhood shaped by expectations. Growing up was not the romantic beginning one might imagine for someone destined for Hollywood. Sam's early life was marked by a household where expectations were clear and rigid. His father believed in stability, in choosing a path that made sense on paper rather than one driven by passion. Acting to him was uncertain and impractical. For a young man with dreams that stretched far beyond his immediate surroundings, that kind of resistance left a lasting impression. It created a quiet tension that would follow him for years. The desire to prove himself became deeply personal, not just about success, but about validation. Even as a teenager, he felt the pull toward storytelling and performance, but he also felt the weight of disapproval. That combination shaped his determination in ways that would later define his entire career. Dreams that refused to fade. Despite the pressure to follow a more conventional path, the idea of acting never loosened its grip on him. It was not a passing interest or a fleeting ambition. It was something deeper, something that felt necessary. The world of film offered him a kind of escape, but also a purpose. He saw in it the chance to become something more than what was expected of him. That kind of dream is not easy to carry, especially when it is met with doubt from the people closest to you. Yet he held onto it with quiet persistence. He did not rebel loudly or dramatically. Instead, he stayed focused, moving forward step by step, even when progress felt painfully slow. That refusal to give up, even when support was lacking, became one of the most defining aspects of his journey. The pain of unfinished conversations. One of the most difficult parts of his story lies in what never had the chance to happen. His father passed away before Sam could truly establish himself as an actor. That meant there was never a moment of recognition, never a chance to bridge the gap that had existed between them. It is a kind of loss that lingers in a very specific way. It is not just about grief, but about the absence of closure. The opportunity to say, "This mattered," was gone. That absence stayed with him, shaping how he viewed both success and failure. Even as his career began to grow, there was always a part of him that understood that some things could never be resolved. That quiet, unresolved chapter added a layer of emotional depth that would later be reflected in many of his performances. Years of quiet struggle. The path to recognition was far from smooth. Before audiences knew his name, there were years filled with uncertainty and rejection. He took on small roles, often barely noticeable, working tirelessly just to stay afloat. There were moments when it would have been easy to walk away, to accept that the dream might never fully materialize. But he did not. Instead, he continued showing up, audition after audition, role after role, building something piece by piece. Those years were not glamorous. They were defined by patience and resilience. For someone with such a strong presence, the waiting was perhaps the hardest part. Yet it was during this time that he developed the grounded, authentic quality that would later set him apart from others in the industry. Finding his place in the industry. When his career finally began to gain momentum, it did not happen overnight. It was gradual, almost understated, much like the man himself. He started to find roles that suited his natural presence, characters that felt authentic rather than forced. This alignment between who he was and what he portrayed made a difference. Audiences responded to the honesty he brought to the screen. He was not trying to be something he was not. Instead, he leaned into his own strengths, allowing his identity to shape his performances. That authenticity became his signature. It also gave him a sense of belonging in an industry that can often feel disconnected from reality. After years of uncertainty, he was finally carving out a space that felt like his own. Love that endured the spotlight. His relationship with Catherine Ross became one of the most stable and enduring parts of his life. In an industry known for its unpredictability, their partnership stood out, but it was not without its challenges. They came together at different points in their careers, with different levels of recognition and experience. Balancing those differences required understanding and patience. Their connection was built on mutual respect rather than competition. Over time, they created a life that extended beyond their work, grounding each other in something more meaningful than fame. Their relationship became a source of strength, offering stability in a world that often lacks it. It is a reminder that even in the midst of public careers, private bonds can remain deeply authentic. The challenges of family life raising a family while navigating the demands of acting brought its own complexities. The long hours, constant travel, and emotional investment required by the profession can create distance, even when there is love and commitment. Sam has spoken about the difficulty of balancing these responsibilities, acknowledging that the industry does not always make it easy to be present. Parenthood added another layer of responsibility, one that required him to think beyond his own ambitions. It meant making choices that considered the well-being of those closest to him. That balancing act was not always perfect, but it was approached with sincerity. It highlighted the reality that success in one area of life often requires sacrifices in another, a truth that many can relate to. A moment of public criticism. Later in life, he found himself facing a different kind of challenge, one that came in the form of public scrutiny. His comments about a contemporary film sparked a strong reaction, placing him at the center of a cultural conversation. It was a moment that revealed how quickly perceptions can shift. For someone who had spent decades building a respected career, it was a difficult experience. He responded with humility, acknowledging his misstep and expressing regret. That willingness to take responsibility showed a different side of him, one that is not always visible in public figures. It was a reminder that growth does not stop with age, and that even those who seem steady and grounded can stumble and learn. The reality of aging. As time moves forward, the physical demands of a long career begin to take their toll. Years of physically demanding roles, combined with the natural process of aging, have brought challenges that cannot be ignored. He has spoken openly about these changes, not with bitterness, but with acceptance. There is a certain honesty in acknowledging that the body does not always keep up with the spirit. In an industry that often prioritizes youth, continuing to work later in life requires both determination and adaptability. He has managed to do so without losing the essence of what makes him unique. That ability to evolve while staying true to himself is part of what has allowed him to remain relevant and respected. A legacy built on resilience. Looking back on his life, it becomes clear that his legacy is not defined solely by his roles or his voice. It is defined by his resilience. He faced doubt early on, struggled through years of uncertainty, and carried personal losses that never fully faded. Yet he continued moving forward, building a career that reflects not just talent, but perseverance. The image that audiences see, the steady presence, the calm confidence, is only part of the story. Behind it is a man who has experienced the full range of human emotion, from disappointment to fulfillment. That depth is what gives his work its authenticity. It is what makes his performances feel real, grounded, and enduring. The man behind the image. At the heart of it all is a simple truth. Behind the iconic image, the voice, and the long career, there is a human being who has faced real challenges. His story is not one of perfection, but of persistence. It is about holding on to a dream even when it seems out of reach, about navigating relationships with care, and about learning from mistakes along the way. That humanity is what makes his journey meaningful. It reminds us that even those who appear strong and unshakable carry their own burdens. And in that recognition, there is something deeply relatable. His life is not just a story of success, but a story of endurance, and that is what makes it truly worth remembering.